The first cross. The cross is an offense to them that perish. The cross is also an offense, an affront to lukewarm Christians. The cross is central to God, the Christian faith, and the earth. The cross itself is not as important as Him who hung on the cross. The cross is one of the many symbols of the death of Christ. Another is water baptism. While water baptism reveals more than death, the cross reveals the elements of His death. Water baptism speaks more of the water that gushed out of His side on the cross. The cross presents the whole picture: the body, the blood, the water. The church must recover the message of the cross. To have this message and ministry recovered, we must go back to the first cross. We must live in the Lord's Supper, in the Lord's body, and in His blood. In other words, we must live in Him. We must live in Him. Only then can we truly appreciate His cross. The first cross is His cross. In the first cross is the message of the cross. All the crosses that men bear is not the cross of Jesus. The cross is the foolishness of God. It is not a result of man's foolishness. John chapter 19, verse 16 to 17 reads, "Then delivered He him, therefore, to be crucified. And they took Jesus and led Him away. And He, bearing His cross, went forth into a place called the place of skull, which is called in the Hebrew tongue Golgotha." The revelational idea of the cross is the confrontation of death in death's domain. It is the confrontation of death in the place of skulls. Golgotha is the place of death. It is confronting death by death. Jesus dragged death from the earth back to Golgotha, back to death's domain, and subsequently back to the grave. Death, the enemies, the last enemy, was the first that Jesus confronted by death. Christ, by His death, took on death and Satan in their realm. Death fell in the grave. Satan fell in hell. Therefore Jesus declared that I have the keys of hell and the keys of death. The first cross was offensive. The grave and the gates of hell all withdrew from the earth and fell from their fallen positions. Satan, hell, and death all fell back. To their first fall. The cross is offensive, not defensive. It was humility for Christ and humiliation for Satan. Christ told his story of the cross, though, and through the holy apostles. Satan is here to narrate his own true version of the cross. Humility is better than humiliation. The first cross reduced Satan and all fallen angels and their elements back to their original form. That is where they belong. The throne of God and man are not meant for Satan. He couldn't occupy God's throne in heaven. God forbids him occupying yours on earth. God is the dividing line between man and Satan. Through man, the fall of Adam, he was able to walk back to heavenly realms, the second heavens, and to accuse man before God and to weaken the earth. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, that Satan also came also amongst them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence comest thou? Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down on it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? Satan had Adam's access to God before the cross. Therefore he came among the sons of God even after his fall. The rank of sons of worship was the rank of Adam. Adam was the son of God. Adam's fall reduced man to the level of servants. Adam the son became Adam the servant of God. Sonship for man is different from the sonship of angels. Sonship for angels is a mere rank, but sonship for man is an unquestionable relationship, an inseparable oneness between God and man. Therefore, Lucifer in Adam's rank was less than Job, who was still a servant of Jehovah. The Lord's confrontation of Satan with his facts led to the persecution of Job by the former. Job's persecution was the result of Satan's jealousy. Satan has had more by virtue of all that he stole from Adam and did less than Job. Job was better than Satan with little. Little was better than much. Satan walked through and through the earth. Job lived on earth. Satan's rank was higher, for he became the false Adam. Yet he was less than Job by virtue of creation and performance. Satan had Adam's access, became the false Adam, the Adam that God never invented. From Adam's fall till Job, only one man, Enoch, had Adam's access to God and was not, for God took him. When Jesus was on the cross, Satan fell from Adam's realm, lost Adam's access, and ceased from being the false Adam. For no Adam is spirit without flesh. The first cross restored Adam. Therefore Adam's generation rose from the death. This cross contained the true ministry and message of Adam. After its activation, Adam came out of Abraham's bosom. Adam today is a point man, not Abraham. Adam's message is different from the message of the church. It is the message and ministry of the kingdom. God began with Adam and is ending with Adam. Adam's restoration is the coming of the beginning into the new beginning. The first cross reactivated Adam on the earth. The coming of the beginning into the new beginning is restoration. The new beginning itself is redemption. Africans and the first cross. What has the first cross got to do with Africans? What is our portion in the first cross? In Mark chapter 15 verse 21, and they compelled one Simon, a Cyrenian, who passed by coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his cross. Although Jesus before this time admonished his disciples to daily take up their cross and follow him, none of them dared this truth face to face. Rather, an unhealthy quest for fame, position, popularity preoccupied their minds. While he was approaching the cross, his demise, they preoccupied themselves with the weakness of the flesh. Who is the greatest amongst us? They argued. Faithful disciples and apostles became fightful apostles and later frightful apostles. Therefore, Satan possessed Judas to the point of betrayal and had Peter to the level of denial. Others simply forsook Jesus. When the Master exemplified the cross, none imitated or followed him with their crosses, not even the apostles. James and John, who claimed could drink the cup of death, backed out at this crucial junction, showing their immaturity and cowardice. Therefore, Jesus bore his cross without the help of his disciples and apostles. If they were all close to the Master that time, they probably would have all been better than Paul the apostles. Paul seemed to have equaled the chiefest of the apostles in works and surpassed them in revelation, because they skipped their final step of training. John the apostle, who came closest to Jesus, lived longer than all the foundational apostles, including Paul. In the midst of betrayals, denials, disappointments, came a disciple, an apostle of the final order, one that represented the final apostles of Christ, an African, a Cyrenian from Libya. He came out of nowhere. His steps were prophetically ordered, a man who became the prophecy of Africa. And they compelled Simon, the African, to bear the first cross of Jesus. He bore the first cross of Jesus. When Peter wasn't there, he was. When John was afar off, he was close by. When James wasn't there, he was. When Paul wasn't there, he was. The African was there to bear the cross. Simon represents everyone on the black continent. He represents all that are connected to this continent on the surface of the earth. Herein lies your call. You are called to bear the first cross, to bear that which the apostles couldn't bear, to enter Adam's realm, message and ministry. You are called to be closer to God than Apostle Peter, than Apostle John, than Apostles James and Paul were. You are compelled by destiny to walk where he walked, to share his cross, and to drink from his cup. You are called to sit closest to Jesus, to suffer his nakedness, homelessness, and to share in the greatest power of the cross. As Simon, you became the Peter that Peter was not. You are called to bear his cross and yours. Your primary call is to bear the first cross. The first cross is the last cross. You bore it first to redeem and restore man. You bear it last to prevent men from crucifying Jesus the second time, which is damnation. The first cross, the revelation and power of God, is surfacing these last days. Instead of Christ being re-crucified, you shall be crucified. Bear the offenses of many, die for many, pass through pains for the sake of the beloved. The first cross is the final cross. Only those who love not their lives unto the death, like Jesus, shall bear it. Jesus loved not his life unto death. They too, like Jesus, do the same. That which Christ did on earth and in hell, they shall do to Satan in the second heavens. This is the heritage and destiny of end time saints, yet it shall be pioneered by the African continent. Just like the apostles pioneered the gospel, so shall we pioneer its conclusion. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. A gap was created by the misbehavior of the false apostles before Christ's death and resurrection, that the final apostles of Christ are going to fill. The space, gap, and ministry that Simon of Cyrene fulfilled prophetically. You are the last, coming from behind, to fill the space between Jesus and the first apostles. Therefore, the last shall be first, and the first shall come behind the last. All others come behind the first. The first becoming the last is the first coming behind the last. God's final apostles shall come second in God's program for the church. Yet, they now come first by virtue of this gap, and the first apostles come behind them. Africans are called to pioneer the final apostolic age. Welcome to your destiny. Many of you are called for this purpose. Few, however, are chosen, and the most faithful few are trusted with such power as the world has never seen. They are trusted with the powers of the age to come.